Um, all right, so I'd like to call to order the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships regular meeting today, December 16th at 4:38 p.m. And I would like to ask for if there is any resident or citizen participation or questions, and it doesn't look like there is any. Great. Um, So we'll just move right along to review the minutes from October 25, 2024 special meeting. So we have to review and approve 3 minutes from past meetings. So the first one's October 25,
I make
20.
a motion that we accept the minutes of the October 25 special meeting.
Okay,
Uh,
may I have a second?
second.
Susie, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. And next is a review minutes from November 12th, and have a potential motion to approve.
There's just a little typo in here.
Okay.
Needs me to find it. It says you started the meeting at 5:34 p.m. instead of 4.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it was just a typo.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yep.
we adjourned at 5:06, so we adjourned that before. Yeah,
Okay.
that's just a typo.
Yes, you're right. Okay, I will change that and then you want to accept it with the modification?
Okay.
Yep.
May I have a potential motion to accept with the modification?
Motion to accept with a modification.
And I second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. The next is the November 18th annual meeting. May I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
May I have a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With gratitude, I liked all the detail in that.
I agree. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I think the annual meeting went really great and I really appreciated that whole setup. So thank you to the staff and Christine and all of you. The next item is the executive director's report. Any questions or comments or anything you'd like to add, Christine?
No, I think this month I really just wanted to give you a little background about the stuff in the packet because I know we have some big sort of HUD compliance pieces that need to get done, and I just wanted to give a little bit of background about that so that you would have that context when you looked at it. Other than that, just that we hired 2 new people to be on staff. Alicia was able to meet them at our holiday party on Friday, which was really nice. Um, and just that we are continuing to meet as part of the One Brattleboro team and also working with the police department and around safety. We had a really successful 2 meetings today at Red Clover Commons with the police department. That was great. So those pieces are ongoing.
Great.
I was glad to see the creative funding for the Ross coordinator position, the grant. Just think, I know it's so much work to find a grant, apply for a grant, and then get it, and then hire someone. So great job. Yeah, we have 2 new hires that both seem really wonderful. So I think we're really excited about it. But yes, it's great to get that funding for sure. We need it. So our little staff is growing slowly but surely.
And I appreciated the information about everything that's in the packets, especially the 2 plans that you are introducing. So I appreciated that. Um, so next is the occupancy director's report, and that includes the write-offs at AW Richards and Ledgewood. Um,
So I don't know if Susie Susie, have you been here when we've had a write-off before? So what a
Okay.
write-off is, so basically we write it off the books. It doesn't go away. We hold it forever, because it's a debt that's owed to us. But it just means that we no longer carry it on the current books, that we put it in a category called debt. And it will be under those two households. So as you can see, the amounts are pretty large. We had one, um, two evictions, the second of which had a lot of legal costs and other costs related to the non-payment of rent, legal, also, um, lots of legal costs related. They were both evictions for cause, but they also then ended up having debts related to rent as well.
Thank you.
Yep. So a cause situation is something that's like, so both were legal, there had been either an arrest on the property or some sort of a very serious, egregious situation for a cause. Yeah.
so I'll need a proposed motion to approve the write-offs totaling $11,305.28 for Ledgewood Heights and A.W. Richards.
I make the motion to approve to write off totaling $11,305.28 for Ledgewood Heights and A.W. Richards.
May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So the Resident Services and Staffing Directors report. I really appreciated all the detail, especially like the reflection of the year and all the accomplishments. It was really great to review those and be reminded of all the amazing work that you all provide. And then get to know, I know I briefly met the two new people, but to get to know them a little bit more with their little write-ups and backgrounds. So that was great. Any other comments or questions?
I was glad to see the call out on the dental care that's been provided. That's just so essential, really life-changing, as they mentioned, and that's really true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bone builders, lots of health improving successes.
Yeah. And yeah.
Great. And then also includes the Section 8 administrative report as well. Which is the pink one. Any questions or comments? No? Okay. Moving right along, we'll now do the financial review. So we have the October and November 2024 check listings. Any questions about those? That's the yellow one. And we have the October 2024 financial comparable. Anything notable, Christine?
Um, I think the only thing I would say is we added a couple of pages towards the end. So we have I think it cut off. Hmm.
Yeah, BOHI and
Yeah, those I think they were long, and so they were supposed to be, I think they were supposed to be landscaped. But anyway, so I will say next month. So James is adding BHOI to this packet. We had been kind of keeping it separate from that Brattleboro Housing Opportunities Inc. So that's a nonprofit. So you'll be seeing a ledger for that every month as well. I'll make sure that it gets printed landscape wise. And then the back is also, I believe, is supposed to be on landscape. So we might be missing a couple of categories, but that's like what is in reserves. And you can see on the bottom the cash balances. That just gives you a general idea of like how much money we have in the actual reserves accounts that you don't see on the monthly comparable. You see the monthly comparable of how much we've spent compared to the budget, but you don't see like what we have actually set aside in our overall accounts. So I think that we wanted to add that to the monthly comparable as well, just to give you a general understanding of what that is. Because sometimes like when we look at we budget for a certain amount, we go over and then we're like, oh no, we went over, like where are we? And we're only looking at like um the annual budget, right? But it's hard for you to see like, oh well, we actually put all this money in reserves and we actually have this money in set aside for this. So it puts a little things in perspective. It's not that we don't want to stay on budget, right? That's our goal, is to stay along the budget, but it kind of helps us to understand that even if we're over in one area, we might be under in another, so that we're keeping a balance for the overall financial health of the organization. So he added that. It will look better next month when we have it on landscape. So, but you get the most important things are the cash balances, which are underneath, which I think are important.
Now, the tenant security, is that put aside a if one of the complexes has to have special security?
No, the tenant, that's a great question. The RAD tenant security account, that's all the money that we have set aside for the security deposits.
Okay.
Yep. So whenever somebody has a security
Okay.
deposit, it goes into a separate account. And then when they leave, but you can see like it's not a ton of money for all the apartments we have. We don't have that many, we don't keep a huge amount because we're not allowed to, we can only take as much as people's rent is, right? And a lot of people, so when people moved in before we went to RAD, their security deposit was only like what their portion of the rent was. So some could be like $100, right? So we have some people whose security deposits are really low, but as people move into new apartments, like if you transfer to a new apartment or if you come into our housing, we ask for a full month's rent of the current rent, not just your portion, but the actual contract rent, because we were finding that we would have people move out, we'd have all this damage, and we didn't have anything. We had $100. It doesn't do much, right? So that's why it's but it's still pretty small because most people like. I don't know, Pat, I don't know when you moved in, maybe yours is larger, but there are people in our residents who moved in maybe 15 years ago and,
Yeah.
They pay $200. It's not going to change unless they change apartments.
Well, mine was 19 years ago. Of course, we had two incomes, and I can't remember what it was, but it was what our deposit was, what our rent was. And of course, my daughter moved in couple of year or two ago. She had to me it was astronomical because I thought, oh, it's going to be the same as her first month's rent. So yeah, 19 years ago when I moved, it was whatever it was.
It is hard for people. It's when people move into our property it is a piece that is hard. So there are some organizations in the community, whether it's SEVCA or Brattleboro Area Affordable Housing, that help people with the security deposits. And some people will put on there that like if they get it back and they've passed away, that it should go back to that agency, which is great. But most of the time it just goes back to the person. They're not required to give it back to those agencies. One other thing noted is the BHOI, the $161,000. We haven't pulled out our money that, so we paid for the playground And
Mhm.
then BHOI will pay us back at the end of the fiscal year. So that's sitting there, but it's really, you should know that that's money that will, a lot of that will be coming back to BHA.
Great. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Next is check signing assignments. We have January, we have Vice Chair Wright, and we'll need February.
I'm game.
Okay. Thanks, Susie.
Susie, thank you.
Sure.
Do you want me to assign March to or wait until next meeting?
You guys, I'm fine. Either way.
Okay. I could do March.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next is board business. So we'll need to review the 2025 board meeting calendar. And we decided to keep it um as we've had it. And unless we have any objections or needing changes today. So we have January, February, March, and December as remote hybrid. And then the rotation starting in April.
Good.
Okay.
Mhm.
May I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the board meeting agenda for 2025.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so the next we'll have to review proposed changes to the Section 8 administrative plan in reference to the Mainstream vouchers. So this includes the comments of the open meeting, right? That we
Oh,
had.
this is a little different. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
This is a totally different thing. So
Sorry.
this is something new. The Mainstream Voucher is a program we have. It's a HUD voucher program that specifically houses people, non-senior people who are disabled. So to receive this voucher, you have to have a disability, but you can't be a senior, or you have to have someone in your household that has a disability. And we've had this program since the early days of COVID. We applied for this through HUD. We don't have a ton of them. I think we have a total of like 25 vouchers. It was just an addition to our program, to our Section 8 program. Good night, Matt. Thanks. And so when we got the program, we originally started it because we wanted to move people off of the Section 8 program, the Shelter Plus Care program. So the Shelter Plus Care program requires that you have case management. And so we had a lot of people in that program. That's for people who are homeless, who have been home, they come out of homelessness and they have a disability. And we wanted to see if people who had been in the program for a really long time that no longer required case management could then be moved into this program if it seemed applicable. And so some people came off of that to make room for more people in the Shelter Plus Care program that requires case management. There's only so much case management available, so we wanted to add more people to that program. So we shifted people out of this to put in this program. So that's just what Mainstream Vouchers is. The only thing we're changing is that under our BHA policy, we have a preference for people who live within the 7 communities around Brattleboro. And under the Mainstream Vouchers, you're not allowed to have that preference. So we need to change in our admin plan that there can be no location preference So that's basically it in a nutshell. Is we're keeping the same program. It's staying the same. It's just that we can't. HUD has said that you can't have a preference for a local preference, and so we're changing the verbiage of that.
Makes sense.
So I think we broke it down. So this is what the current is. This is what we're adding, and this is what we'll be deleting.
So it doesn't say anything about preferentially for people who are homeless or experienced housing insecurity. That's how I read this at first, was that.
Yeah, so that language is also so we're taking that whole piece out, and that will no longer need it as a preference because we don't need it anymore. We've already used it for that capacity. So now it'll just be open to anybody who is either a non-senior adult that has a person who has a disability in their household. And we'll take away the preference that it has to be within this jurisdiction. So somebody could apply for it from Hawaii and you come here and use it. I mean, I don't know if they'll be able to find housing with it, but they could apply for this voucher if they wanted to, if they had a disability, if they have someone in their household with a disability and they are a non-senior. Yeah. So you're correct, Michelle. It's taking both of those things and changing it. Just because it just seems like we're not utilizing them because we're just not getting people, we're not finding people to use it because now we have more space in our section, the shelter plus care program.
Are we ready for a proposed motion? To accept the changes of the Section 8 administrative in reference to the Mainstream Voucher effective December 20th, 2024.
I make a motion that we accept the changes as described for the Section 8 administrative reference, etc.
Second.
All in favor? Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I was bouncing ahead and reading the
You're fine,
line.
Alicia, you're fine. It's a lot of HUD language. It's fine. Don't worry. Never apologize.
Okay, so now we're reviewing the HUD 2025-2026 annual plan and HUD 2025-2030 5-year plan drafts. And
so
the public hearing will be on January 13th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure you've got a copy of these ahead of time. You don't need to vote on them today. I mean, we're not voting on them today. We'll have the public hearing in January, and then we'll need to submit them to HUD pretty soon afterwards. There is a process for these, so they have to be available within, I think there's a whole timeline, but we met it. It was like, you have to have them drafted, and then I need to submit them to the housing commissioner for the state. They approve it, and then we post them in our properties, and we post them in our offices. We have a legal notice that goes on the paper, and they're available, and we put on our website. They're available for 45 days before the hearing. And then once we have the hearing, then we need to submit it to HUD within a few days, and then it needs to be done a certain amount of time before fiscal year starts, which is April 1st. So there's a very specific timeline. So I just wanted to make sure that you had a copy of it before next month's meeting, so that if you had any questions now, it might be helpful, that we could talk about it now, because the turnaround after the meeting is pretty quick. They're really, I mean, they're important. They're mandated by HUD. They're a little bit performative, like we have other things in place, like we have a strategic plan. We have our MTW plan, there's other pieces. Really, it's to see, like, the reason we do them is because if we have any major changes, like when we went to Moving to Work, we had to we had to put all of that information in this because we're changing major components of what we do under HUD guidelines. So whenever we make any of those major changes, we do need to put them into this plan. And then like our HUD rep will then review it and make sure that we submitted everything, and then they'll approve it, and then it gets submitted to HUD. It's not performative, but it is a little bit of like, it's a regulation. It's not like when we do the strategic planning, we come up with a strategic plan and we talk, it's kind of like we're just filling the forms out so that we're compliant with HUD. But there might be things that you see that might be wrong, or there could be you might have questions. So I'm happy to answer any of them.
So if there aren't any questions or comments, I'll move on to the next.
And I'll just say one thing. So the annual plan we need to do annually. We technically don't even really have, because we're a small agency, like we actually don't have to do it, but I just do it every year because I feel like I've always done it and I think we should do it. So I just complete them. The 5-year plan though, we only do every 5 years, but a lot of times something will happen within that 5 years, and then we have to do a revised one. So you might see a 5-year plan next year. You might see it the next year after that. Like, it's not that we just submit it every 5 years. It's just that if we had to change something, we would put a revision. Even if we change something in the annual plan, we would just submit a revision, and then we would ask HUD for the approval.
So it's kind of like a working document.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is
Great.
on the first page of the annual plan, the
Yeah.
number of A1 there, number of public housing units 26, number of housing choice vouchers 459
Sure.
total combined.
Yep. So the 26 are the units that are at Melrose. So we still have 26 units in public housing, technically at Melrose, even though they're vacant and we don't have a subsidy tied to them. They're still under the public housing, like they're still titled as public housing. We never converted them to RAD because we were in the process of relocating everybody to Red Clover Commons. So that's those, and we still get some capital fund money directly associated with this property to like take care of the property. And that's the money that we have to use only at Melrose. So we're using it for the redevelopment costs. The 459 vouchers are, that's all of our RAD vouchers. So that's like the subsidies that are at Ledgewood, Moore Court, Hayes Court, and Samuel Ellen Apartments. So they're those because now they're no longer in public housing. They're in what we call RAD, Rental Assistance Demonstration, and they all have a voucher tied to the unit. So, so they're in that number, as well as our Section 8 program that has all the apartments in the community. So that doesn't count A.W. Richards or RCC1 because those are separate, but it does count RCC2 because we have all of our vouchers in RCC2. Yeah.
I feel like I almost have it.
Yeah, it's a good question. And Susie, we'll get there. Believe me, Susie's like, what is she talking about? I know it's a lot. But yes, every unit now has a voucher tied to it, whether it's a voucher in the community or at one of those properties, except for those 2 tax credits, which are just weird because one of those RCC1 has Vermont State Housing. They have their own vouchers in it. And then A.W. Richards doesn't necessarily have vouchers tied to every unit, although we have put some in there. So, yeah. So it basically is 459 potential households that we could have in that program.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a great question.
Okay. Are we ready for the next?
Mhm.
Okay. So next is to review the 3 proposed waivers for the 2025-2026 Moving to Work Supplemental Plan and notes from the October 28th, 2024 public hearing. So that's this one.
I guess, sorry, Alicia,
mhm.
I just, I didn't realize we were moving off the strategic plan.
Oh, the
Because,
annual plan? Yep.
yeah, I just wanted to appreciate that the strengthened BHP neighborhoods and like everything all spelled out there, just for, the public that, I appreciate, you're making progress on all those strategic goals, and there's some things, noted there that are, not done and need to be done. So that's all very organized, and it's nice to see that in black and white
Thanks.
or red and black.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Are we ready? Okay, that's okay. So next is the Moving to Work Supplemental Plan, and we will need to make a motion for this. So I'd like to open it up for discussion if there's anything.
It's an excellent public discussion, I thought, and it seemed to be very reassuring for the folks who came with a lot of concerns. I think it cleared up a lot of those concerns.
So the three waivers under the MTW designation is to change the medical deduction policy, accept paid child support from income for rent calculations, and inspect BHP owned managed buildings. So the biggest concern out of the three of these was to change the medical deduction policies. That yeah, I mean, I hear and understand those concerns, and I appreciated all of the thoughtful answers and responses that Christine and David offered. I know this is a difficult decision, and I appreciated the process going forward. So are we ready to make a motion, or?
Yeah, I would just say around the inspections, I had wondering about that originally. Wasn't sure that that was in the best interest of the residents. But I feel comfortable with the way this is written. One thing is that, I mean, I know this is what the staff does for other agencies, so they're trained in this. And also there's just a tremendous amount of inspection, it seems, that goes on from, fire and life safety, or it's just seems like this is totally fine. I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, we do. We do have a lot, and this would just be our every other. I mean, we do our inspections every year anyway. This is just the biannual one, which, and the new tenant move-in inspections. But we have to follow the HQS, which is the housing quality standards set by HUD, regardless, and we have to sign off of that. And so, I do think it would save time to have our staff doing it for sure. And also, like, we want to be able to get in there pretty quickly and get them done. And it's not always, it doesn't always happen as quickly. We also have a lot of resources in town. I mean, we work with the fire department a lot to bring in the fire department. I mean, they go into inspections with us a lot of times. I don't know, did they go into the recent inspection? Were you there, Pat, when they went into the inspections last month?
Right, we had the fire department and Jen and
This last week?
this last
Yeah,
week.
yeah. So a lot of times when we do like a full, we'll invite the fire department and they'll come if they can, which is great. We also bring in the inspector from the fire department, the health inspector, if there's ever an issue, like if someone reports that there's discoloration or there's mold, something that they think might be mold or other, hazards that they worry about. Everyone has the right to call the health officer, and we're more than happy to bring them in and do that as well. So.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It seems like there were an awful lot of concerns expressed about the medical deductions. Do you feel like with the responses that were provided that people feel reassured by that? And I know some of the timeline means that they might not be affected for a few years, but this just seems to have hit really close to home. And I just wondered how you feel like it ended up.
Some were very concerned. It would bring tears to your eyes. It's when you're healthy, and then you see somebody that's really not healthy, and they weren't that old either. It, it does. It brings tears to your eyes because they're really, a lot of them, the medications and the problems they have is when you're healthy, it's hard to understand, but they were really concerned.
Yeah.
They were concerned that we lose our housing if we can't do this. And, if we had to pay so much for all this and blah, 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 but we lose our housing. They were really, some of them were, one especially was really, really concerned for the medical bills and it's what you call a chronic illness. And will I lose my housing? So the concern was there, especially with one of them.
I think the hard part is we definitely will not be able to meet everybody's, we can't make everybody happy in this situation for sure. And I think we wanted to look at what would support the vast majority of people,
Right.
meaning, if we went to the 10%, so we're sort of like, we have two issues here going on simultaneously. Like, it's not just that we're choosing to change this. We're choosing to change this because we want to change the rule, which will be in effect that they would need to meet the 10% threshold.
Right.
And most people will not meet that. And so this would allow more people to get a deduction than otherwise would not. And most people, the vast majority of people, all the things that they claim are going to still be deducted, like their Medicaid, supplemental insurance. So, these are the really high costs. Their copays. The things that won't be covered are like all the other little, things that I do understand add up for some people for sure. But the vast majority of people do not use those do not take those, and so, I think if we were getting rid of all deductions, I would, that would really hurt a lot of people. But what this will do is it will open up the deductions for more people, and meaning more people will save money. And then it also will, it will still allow for all those main issues that everybody has, which are the regular, the regular pieces, which are the supplemental and the co-pays and the hospital pays and all of the other pieces. It won't just get rid of those things. And then I think the other part to really understand, which I think you're absolutely right, Susie, that you mentioned, is that this has a hardship policy built in. So like we've changed it so that we're not recertifying every year. We're doing every 3 years. And then you have a hardship policy that you get another cycle to adjust. So for most of these people, the soonest they would have to deal with this would be in 5 years. And I'm not saying that that's not a problem, but it gives people some time to acclimate.
I know at one time you could deduct your aspirin, your vitamins, your medical thing, like depends, things like that, and that's an over the counter, unless it's some prescriptions carry your hygiene products, like depends. But at one time you could claim anything as long as the doctor said you use it.
But at this point, if we still took those, we wouldn't meet you're not going to meet the 10% threshold when you're getting aspirin over the counter or even Prilosec or something like that. It's just not going to meet that. even if that's what you're getting, right? Even if that's a little bit more of an expensive. So, but there are some people, I will say this, there probably are a very, very small amount of people who put in a lot of, they have they receive um, they receive clearance from their doctor to allow for a lot of things. And, we can't decide which is which. And, so there, but it's not the vast majority. It's most people are, it's just the normal, the regular, like, deductions and copays and all of those pieces. Um, and with this, more people will meet that because they won't have to meet the 10% fresh threshold, which is pretty high.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, it's not going to make everybody happy for sure. There's definitely going to be, but when we looked at the problem, when we looked at the vast number of people who take deductions, we found that far more people are going to be able to do this than they would if they had to meet the 10%.
There's a change coming either way.
There's a change coming either way.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
we sit and we don't approve it, we don't have to do it. And then it'll just be the 10%, and then we can do that. That either way, it's a decision.
Mhm.
But I think when we were looking at it, we were trying to make it so that it benefited more people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, I think we should approve it and hope that that HUD accepts it.
Yeah. And if they don't, then we'll have to do the 10% regardless. So yeah. But it's really, yeah, it's really up to you. I mean, to be honest, like, it doesn't, I think this would be helpful, but it's really, I don't have a strong opinion on it either way. I mean, it was really just a way of coming up with a strategy to support more people. The same as the 3-year recertification, just to allow more people to have more money during that time than
Mhm.
having to recertify every year.
And this is intended to make it a little easier on the staff too, right? In trying
Yes.
to figure out, yes.
Yeah, because we have to, I mean, that's the other piece is like if someone comes in with like a box of receipts, right, then we have to allocate a staff member to go through all of that piece by piece and line it up and all of those, which can be really labor intensive.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it will save some time, although we've been doing it for a very long time. So, we're happy to keep doing it if that's the way we end up. But it is pretty labor intensive for a very, very small group of people.
Mhm.
But I feel for them. I totally, I'm compassionate towards that too. But when I look at these things, I do want to look a little broader to see if we can impact more people with positive change versus just a small handful.
Mhm. Do we need a motion? I
We
lost
do.
track.
Yeah. Are we
Okay.
ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the 3 Moving to Work Supplemental Plan waivers for the fiscal year 2025, 2026 as presented.
I will
We have a
second.
second. Second from Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. So, the next is to discuss property safety committee. Um, anything notable that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to present to the board that we're thinking about, we've been talking to residents. We've had a lot of resident meetings in the last few months with and without the police, and we've been, I mean, I think we've all heard the concerns all over, even amongst our board members, right? Of safety is such a big priority. And so, we are pulling together, we're talking to residents individually and seeing if people would like to be part of a small committee to talk about improving safety on the properties. Also gleaning information when we go to all these meetings to hear what people have to say about what would help them to feel safer. And then I guess I wanted to throw out to the board if there was a board member specifically that wanted to be on the committee that helps to make recommendations as well. And so as we're putting this together, I wanted to offer that up I wanted to see if the board thought that they wanted to appoint a certain person, or if we wanted to just leave it open and that we could have all the board members come if they'd like, or I guess I just wanted some feedback from the board to get a better understanding of what you thought that committee should look like.
See, I'm also a resident, so I'm board and resident, so I could probably be under resident, and that's where would I represent where I live and not the board. And see, that this would be the problem with me. I'm a resident plus a board member.
Yeah, and you're always representing both. Yeah.
That's it.
Mhm.
See how it would be good to have board representation. I don't think I can commit to going to all of them, but certainly would be interested in going to some once in a while.
Yeah, I'm in favor of keeping it open. Being able to attend when and maybe getting agendas maybe ahead of time or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they meet monthly, the committee?
We haven't set it up yet. So we're trying to decide who should be on the committee. So that was sort of why I wanted to bring it to the board to get a better understanding of who you felt, if you felt like there needs to be a person appointed, what you thought the board should do, or if you had any feedback about who should be on the committee. We definitely know we want to get some residents on the committee. We would like to also have a few staff members on the committee, potentially community partners. So if you had a suggestion of what organization you feel like should be put in, be pulled into this. I've talked a little bit with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust to see if they wanted to do like a dual committee together, since we serve such, we have similar issues on our properties, and they were receptive to that. So it's really just in the forming stage at this point. We hadn't had an opportunity to talk about it, so I just wanted to bring it to you to see if you had any just feedback.
I personally think having Jeff there would be really beneficial for both staff and residents.
Jeff Rose.
Jeff Rose, yeah.
He's the mental health clinician that works with us through the retreat. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
He definitely should be.
Yeah, I think it would be great. And then I don't know if Knowles, the social worker police liaison could attend or at least make appearances as much as possible.
Yeah, I certainly can reach out to them. Kira is the other police social worker, and she's been coming to she came today to our resident meetings, and
Great.
she's also there. We've also been working a lot with, why can I not remember his name now? He came from Turning Point.
Justin?
Justin, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've been working with Justin a lot too, and he might be he might be a good
Absolutely.
person.
Absolutely. Great. Any other suggestions or? No? Okay. So, leaving it open for board members to attend. And yeah, those two suggestions. Great. So, the BHP Data Project.
Sure. So Michelle and Alicia and I had a little bit of a conversation. Michelle made some great suggestions around potentially having in the board packet more, instead of having the big narratives all the time, having more just certain data that we're tracking. And so we met about a week and a half ago to talk about different data points. And since that meeting, I was able to review that information with staff. And so we have some real, so there's a few data points that we're really looking at to start in the new year. So you probably won't see it till February because we'll start in January. But some of it is occupancy. So number of households, number of vacancies, number of households leased up, number of households specifically coming from homelessness or from housing instability. And also starting to look at the complaints. So just tracking the complaints. We were going to try to track all of the complaints per property, but then try to do a little bit of breakdown of like what the complaints are. Like, are they all about, today I heard a lot about people smoking in their apartments, and I hear a lot about, I've heard a lot about, so it could be that there's certain months where we're getting more complaints about certain things. And then also looking at Section 8 data, so number of households leased up, and how many Section 8 vouchers we're utilizing in the community. And so tracking those things seems pretty easy because those are things we're already tracking except for the complaints, but we created a process for that. So I think that should work. And then another thing would be tenants and legal. That's something we track already so that the board has a better understanding of, okay, these are the number of people who have gotten legal notices for non-payment and for cause, and tracking that. Because I think that's very interesting because, we'll have lots and lots of people who start, and then we get they work really hard and we try to work with them to get the debt paid off. So they stay housed, and that's a story that doesn't get told enough. So I think that would be pretty powerful. And then the supportive services, we're really looking at, basically like number of programs offered, maybe like what those programs are, if they're health related or if they're social isolation related, or if they're, kid related, and then just utilization of programs. So like how many people are in the programs. I think if you in Lorelei's report this month, she shared some pieces like, we've had an increase of 15%, or, that would be helpful to see too. Or like we have a decrease, we had many people moving out of our housing who were in the program, and now we have to lease up, we have to get them signed up again and what that looks like. So I think that could be helpful. So those were sort of the data points that we were looking at. And when we're doing that, we won't be submitting narratives as often then. So we won't be tasking the staff with writing up these long reports, but you'll be able to track the data, which I think might be a little bit more meaningful as well. So yeah. Anything else, Michelle, and Michelle's helping us because she's going to help us once we get the data points. She's going to help us to build sort of in an Excel spreadsheet how to track it. Do you want to add
Sounds
something?
amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. So any questions about that, or no? Okay. So the Melrose Terrace redevelopment update is the other pink one. So yeah, I appreciated the next steps. So the application is due April 11th. And I had a question. What was that? And it just flew out. Sorry. Sorry. Any other questions? I'll hopefully remember mine.
I just thought they were doing such a great job. I think one thing that became sort of clearer to me during that meeting was the attention is being paid to, even though costs might be higher at first, it's worth it in order to create a building that is financially sustainable. like buying the better paint so that you don't have to repaint every year, that's not what he talked about, but something like that, that over time the building could get more and more expensive. And in fact, the funding sources and the way things like that work, if you plan it right ahead of time, then you set yourself up for success.
Mhm.
Yeah, and at this point, we're really relying on M&S team to do, I mean, that's what we hired them for, is to do a lot of this development work. And so they are really, I think they're working really hard to try to figure out what the best programs are to fund this. And we're getting closer and closer to really understanding what that's going to look like.
Exciting.
Yeah. And I think they want to come to a board meeting relatively soon. So, I'll talk to them about potentially, I know we have the hearing in January, but maybe that I'll see if we have time in that January meeting.
Mhm.
It might be good for them to come with an update.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Michelle, for coming as well. She's been helping a lot, so that's been great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Listening, I've been listening a lot.
Yeah.
Lastly is the BHOI, Brattleboro Housing Opportunities Inc. updates.
Yeah,
We've
I just wanted,
reviewed that.
yeah, I just wanted to give you an update that the board is fully functioning. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 active members, which is great. They're all very engaged. So we're having a meeting again. We had a meeting last month, which we have been reviewing the bylaws, and we're having another meeting this week, to continue that process. And yeah, I think we're looking at potential first projects for the board to work on. So it's been a lot. It's been great. So I'm really grateful for them. It's nice to have that up and running.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, are we ready to adjourn? Yeah.
Seems like it.
Okay. All right. So, see you all next month.
Sounds
Thank you.
great.
Thank you,
Thank
Alicia.
you
Thank you,
all.
Christine.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Nice to see
Happy New
you.
Year.
Happy holiday.
Oh, we need a motion to adjourn. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I
Yeah.
move,
may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
A
Second?
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
We're so good.